Welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name's Giacomo,
And I'm Sawyer.
And I'm
and
Melanie.
this is the next episode. I'm not even sure. I know with you and Ben taking over everything, I'm not sure how we're starting this thing, but what I do want to say is thank you, everyone who is tuning in and listening. You're the reason why we do this. And we have really exciting stuff to share. And I'm super psyched to see what kind of direction Muscles by Brussels is going to take with you and Ben behind the wheel, because you two are doing your own recording when before you even joined up and joined forces with us. So, and
Mhm.
we have a guest here today. But I think before we get into what we're actually talking about, which honestly I have no idea, but I'm totally cool with going with the flow. I just know how
Mhm.
awesome Mel is, and I'm psyched to be
Mm.
reconnecting with you. Catch me
Yeah.
up to speed with what's going on in your worlds. Well, how about Melanie? The last time I was chatting with you, we got to hang out for a little bit while I was tabling at the New York City Marathon, and you were telling me about your powerlifting goals, and I got to know you a little bit, but I didn't really get to know you, not like Sawyer did. So
Mhm.
I don't know that you could catch me up with a full year, but what's been going on with you?
Oh gosh, it has been quite a year. Many, many changes
Yeah.
personally and in terms of the powerlifting and so forth. A lot of good things, a lot of things that were challenges since talking with you. Change in marriage, got divorced, so have a new place, established a family a little somewhere different. Job still the same, kept training through it all. It won't say that it all went easy, it happens. But and then this past fall had some really pretty decent success at the USA Powerlifting Southwest Regionals, and
Mm.
yeah, that's been keeping me busy.
Decent is a light way to put it, but yes, I think you've overcome so much, and I'm so excited to get into it because, like, by the way, guys, I'm Melanie's coach. I have been for the last how long has it been now? Were we like almost a year? Working with you has been so much fun because even though powerlifting is not my wheelhouse, I just kind of deferred to you on a lot of things that I knew you knew, but I also felt like I knew some things that I could contribute, and we really synergized well. And I think that's part of why we were able to accomplish what you accomplished. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you bringing up the divorce because I think that if like how we talked about Jen Thompson and like how for you it was a little bit like she's so in the stratosphere, and then also she was competing on like lower levels, and you were kind of like, that's kind of weird. I love that you're so real about the struggles that you face and that you are willing to kind of just say, hey guys, like I'm not perfect. I've had many struggles and I've had many fears, and I really want to talk about all that stuff because I think that's the most inspiring. Because when we try to act like we're untouchable and we've just always been this elite athlete and stuff like that, it makes us just less inspiring to people because then we're just like not relatable to anybody else. And so I love how real you are about what you faced on your way to this success because it was not a smooth, steady incline. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's kind of leaves me at a loss for where to start because there's so much. There's so much to talk about that we've gone through this year. Giacomo, do you have any questions since you're kind of the newest to this conversation? Like what would you want to know as an audience member kind of thing?
Well, I do think I'm going to be a fly in the wall for a lot of this conversation, but I'm
Okay.
genuinely curious to hear a different take and spin on how pushing and finding a way through
Mhm.
is the way to get through life events, whether they're ones that you choose or ones that you do not. I'm
Mhm.
genuinely looking forward to getting to know you better, Melanie. I'm curious to hear why you powerlift, what continues to motivate you, both inside the sport and outside the sport for personal reasons, like
That's a
beyond
good place to start.
achievement, beyond, yeah, I don't want to throw too many thoughts out there, but I have a lot. But I
Yeah.
am super curious to hear what makes you tick outside of just, well, I accomplished something, so let me talk about what I accomplished. Like, no, you went through a process to get there, and what I'm
Mhm.
curious to know what that's been like.
Sure. I think if I had to give you kind of a glimpse into what makes me tick, it's that I have my attention span is like that of a Jack Russell Terrier, I think. I am one who changes things up a fair amount, and I'm kind of always seeking for that next thing that seems fun and so forth. And does not mean that all the things that I kind of get myself into end up being fantastic successes. They certainly don't. I quit a lot of things and such too
Mhm.
along the way. But about 2 years ago, I started weight training. Had been doing just some basic physical training, more focused on weights because I had been running for a long time. Got a stress fracture in my hip because of running on concrete, training for a marathon. And had just turned 50. My sister and I were going to do the Houston Marathon together. Well, she got stress fractures in her shins. I got a stress fracture in my hip. And running was off the table for a while. And trying to figure out, well, what do I want to do? And needed a goal of some sort. And I'm not a ball sports kind of person. I'm really pretty uncoordinated. I can't. So like the pickleball thing wasn't going to be for me really. So made myself a goal. Let's just try a powerlifting competition because someone I knew was doing one. She was in Mississippi. And so went to the gym, found a trainer there who happened to be ranked in USA powerlifting, and and so got hooked up with him and started training and did my first meet, and it was very, very scary. And there were a lot of things that went well and some things that didn't. Decided, well, I'd like to do another one because my strength had really gone up. Just a little bit of training, those beginner things where a little bit of training goes a long way at first. And so did another one. That was great. So then I was really into the training. And that's when some more difficulties kind of started coming into play.
Before we get into that, I just want to commend you for your openness to challenge. Like, I think that the fact that you went from marathon to powerlifting immediately, I mean, that's unfathomable for most people. Like, not even just like people your age or mothers or whoever, whatever. It's like most people, like myself included, the thought of doing either of those things is like, wow, that's a big deal. So the fact that you were just kind of like, I need a challenge, I'm going to try a bunch of different things, I think is very commendable. And then the fact that you actually got hooked on one of those things is even cooler because then you were able to kind of pull on that thread long enough to actually set some freaking records. Skip to the end of that story, I guess, real quick. But I just think it's so cool. I think it's so cool how this started. And I actually hadn't heard the whole story about how it just like started. I just kind of jumped in and started helping as much as I could. But it was like, that is really cool how that came up. What do you think drives you to want challenge? Is that just something you've always been like? Or is it just, do you think you had to grow that somehow in you?
I think there's always been a little bit of wanting to have that challenge or that purpose, something that's internal. And in the powerlifting in particular, I think there's a lot more women, older women even too, that are getting into it because of that internal satisfaction of being able to accomplish something. And also the training is something that's pretty self-reliant. It's not with a team necessarily. You can do the workouts when you get to have that time. We're balancing a lot that happens. Now you need spotters and things like that and stuff too. Not competing collegiately or anything like that, or in the open. That's a little different story. But it's really, I think it's just that satisfying to be able to go to the gym and move a kind of weight that makes someone else look at you like,
yeah, you get a kick out of that. Yeah, I would too. That's pretty awesome. No, that's super interesting because I think, yeah, it sounds like there were a lot of points of like, okay, this kind of discipline that you have to grow, this self-reliance that you have to have, this impressiveness that it has, on the general population. Like there are a lot of things that kind of kept you going that were more internal focused. I mean, I guess that the impressing people is external, but the truth is like there's a lot of different points like for you that kept you in it besides just like the ultimate goal of getting to the whatever the finish line is or whatever the goal is that year.
And honestly, a lot of so my initial workouts, you saw them when we started training together and you looked at what I'd been doing. The volume was insane. And it took a lot of time. And so it was, I needed that time at that point in life. It was a way for me to be away from the house. I've been working at home since the pandemic started. So you really need that outlet to be out and away, even more so when say the relationship at home isn't working either. So there also was that great aspect of being able to be somewhere else in the gym, a place that I really liked. I mean, doing something that felt good to me. I didn't even notice
Mhm.
people noticing me until probably about a year into training. And
Really?
the
Yeah.
trainer I was working with said, the looks and that, how are you feeling about that with them? What look?
What are you talking about? People looking at
Why
me?
was somebody looking at me?
You're so locked in. I mean, yeah, when I came into the picture and I just saw you doing all that volume, I was like, well, this chick is serious. Like, she could be in the gym for a couple hours doing all this stuff. Like, obviously was concerned about your recovery, but I was also just like impressed by the amount you're able to put yourself through, just like mentally. You know what I mean? Like even beyond like the physical exhaustion, just you being able to like be there and doing that training like day after day after day for that much volume. And obviously we ended up reducing it and it was a good thing. But it really impressed upon me right away that I was like, okay, this woman's serious. Like she has goals and she's gonna do what it takes to get there. And then from there, it was just getting to know your personality and then also obviously how you respond to training. But I like to start at the lower end of the volume spectrum and then only go up when it becomes necessary to, because then it's a lot easier to manage fatigue and stimulus because then you're not doing the most that you could possibly do and then have to work backwards, which is, I think, a lot harder. Cool. So Giacomo, I see the cogs turning in your brain.
Always.
What is the next always. What is the next question you have for Melanie, like as this story unfolds? You know what I mean? I wanna like as the fly on the wall in this conversation. So you said, what do you think is the most interesting thing? Like the challenges that she faced? Is that kind of where your brain goes from here?
There's a couple things, but I want to lock in right now on the doer in you and how you hold back when you know that it's going to get you better results, even though there's some part of you that
Hmm.
is adapted to and used to training with higher volume. And maybe it's time to lower your volume because you get better results. And logically, you know that the outcome is there. However, in theory, you know that in actuality, you have to wind up tapering back your training or focusing more on your recovery. What do you do? What do you tap into mindset wise to accept that, embrace that, and get good at that process, especially being a powerlifter, which powerlifting is all about pushing really hard and trying to find a way to improve your work capacity beyond no reason while you're in pain quite often, from my personal experience. And maybe I took the wrong approach, but that's just my limited perspective. So, yeah, that's my question. What do you do mindset wise to accept, embrace, and get really good at recovery and pulling back on your volume? Because I get the impression that you're the type that is okay with and maybe even needs to push really hard to enjoy what you're doing because it's part of the challenge, blah, blah, blah. That's my big question right now.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. One of the things that I really like about powerlifting and the training for it is being able to do those heavy singles at the beginning of a workout where if it's a bench day, like, okay, I'm going to warm up, and then you do a series of 1 reps as you build up to this one that's going to be big for the day. And there's just such a a neat dopamine hit that you get when you get that heavy weight that you're aiming for, and you start to see it go up. But then all of those accessories exercises add so much stress on the body, and you can pile on a lot of volume, which is great. I was getting very strong, but I really was sore and tired, and things were starting to get into uh, you can start to get into little imbalances when if something is tired for too long, you kind of correct it in a different way. You shore it up in a different way, which can then cause more stress or something. So
Mhm.
when Sawyer looked at my program and was designing one for me, did take down the volume quite a bit. And, I just, it, I trusted him. I mean, that was one of the things I think you have to do with a good trainer-trainee relationship is trust. And I've been working on a long
Easier
time.
said than done.
It can be,
Yeah.
it can be,
Yeah.
especially, yeah. And that was, the other personal things that were going on in my life. There were a lot of things that I couldn't trust. This was one where like, no, I'm going to trust it. And it feels good when you can trust like that, and especially then when it pays off. And Sawyer was very good about always listening and responding and adapting too, and soliciting that kind of feedback, not just the numbers, but okay, but how do you feel? Did this feel
Yeah.
easy, or did that feel not? It's getting all of those subjective things. So yeah, I think the mindset was really one where I was trusting that trusting my body and trusting Sawyer is working in my best interest. Yeah.
Well, I think personally that you have a lot of courage, Mel. Like you've shown that in so many different situations now at this point, like personal relationships and, accepting challenges and trusting, like all these things require a lot of courage that, things will work out eventually. And I think that's part of why what we did worked, because you had to have a lot of courage to go and trust this person that you didn't really know, and then also, try for this thing that you didn't know if you could achieve. And then, you know what I mean? So it was a lot of little leaps of faith throughout that journey. But ultimately, I like what you said about adapting and feedback, because that's ultimately what matters the most, right? It's like, it doesn't matter even if you get it right on the first try, if the second that I designed a program for you and it was like perfect for you, right, in that moment, eventually it would need to change when your goals changed, or when, your needs changed, or you had an injury or something like that. So if you're not adaptable in any way, it's eventually going to be, it's like a broken clock is right, twice a day, right? But it's not going to be right all the time. And so you have to adjust things with both the numbers and like you're saying, the emotional feedback that I'm getting. So I really like that you mentioned that, because I think that's a part of coaching and just like working with somebody that needs to be there, especially because like I don't pride myself on being like a powerlifting coach either. Like I wouldn't consider myself a powerlifting coach. And yet here we are breaking state and regional records together, because you're a badass powerlifter and I'm a badass coach. And it was just like, cool. That was fun. Like it was a really cool experience. But I really do admire the fact that you just have this much courage to be like, I'm going to try this new thing. I'm going to see how it works out. Because at the end of the day, I think you have this kind of, I don't know, maybe it's self-belief. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. You have this self-belief, or maybe it's like a more spiritual thing where you're like, I think things are going to work out eventually. I'm going to learn, or I'm going to win, or both. You know what I mean? Is that kind of the attitude that you go into things with, where you're like, I'm scared, but like, it's probably going to work out kind of thing?
I think that's one of the things I've learned through this whole powerlifting journey, honestly, because otherwise I really would have been a lot more uptight and really trying to control it and really pushing through it, and just always, drive, and then be disappointed when it didn't work, or have it just fall apart continually. And so when I've learned to back off a bit with the training, with the intensity, with the mindset, in terms of I don't have to have this all pre-planned in my head and have everything go completely according to plan. I can handle a setback. Maybe it's not even a setback, but just learning to let things wash over a little bit more has been, I think the powerlifting has been cathartic for that, in bringing it into everything else in life as well.
Well, I think two things I want to say about that is, like, one is that life is going to humble us all, right? We think we have a plan for our lives, and then you get hit, you get knocked on the side of your head, and you're like trying to, like, what's that Mike Tyson quote? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Like life is going to punch you in the freaking face, and you better have some adaptability for when that happens, and you better be able to pick yourself back up and like learn some things from that punch, because otherwise you're in for a rough ride, because that's not the only time it's going to hit you. You know what I mean? So I like that you were able to just be like, okay, there's a lot of things that I can't control in my life that are going off the rails a little bit, but like this is one thing I can kind of control, and I can invest in myself, and I can kind of follow this thread. And I think that's really cool that you were able to take that lesson in life and be like, I'm gonna apply myself to this, like this craft. I think that's amazing. I'm kind of forgetting my second point now. Dang it. Come back to me. What else do you want to know, Giacomo? I want you to be like the guide, the audience member in this conversation of like, what do you want to keep finding out about Mel? Because she's such a cool and multi-level layered person, that we could never hope to explore all of the complexity in this one conversation. But I am curious what you think, what you're curious about.
Well, I'm also interested in knowing what you've been up to nutritionally. What kind of changes have you made this past year? How did that impact your training? How has that impacted your process as far as fueling yourself up for competition, but hopefully also impacting you lifestyle wise? I know as an athlete, it can get tough to separate the two, right? You're like, okay, well, I'm eating a certain way because it's going to make me better. And if I want to keep getting better and better and challenging myself, I need to keep improving and centering my nutrition around competing and being an athlete. And it makes sense, eat in an athlete centered way. So I guess it's a two-parter, right? Do you eat only in an athlete-centered way? And if not, if you focus on enjoying your food outside of how you identify as an athlete, improving as an athlete, what's that been like? How have your eating habits changed since you started working with Sawyer? What was your intention going into this relationship to hiring a trainer?
Sure. The nutrition part that has been really interesting. So when I started powerlifting, I weighed about 130 pounds and powerlifting's divided into weight classes as well as age classes. And so I was thinking I was in this one particular weight class and things were fine, and get to training and you train and you eat and you train and you eat. And I was trying to be pretty good about it. I'd done the reading and so forth on protein and was getting all sorts of calories in. But yeah, the weight was coming up and coming up and coming up. And then on my first meet, I actually had a tough time getting down to the weight that I was supposed to be at for my class that I had registered at, which was a bit of a shock. And so it required a couple of days of liquids only before the competition. And I decided I didn't ever want to do that again. So had to retool again as to being so different in terms of a strength athlete versus a running athlete, where running you can eat all the time and the calories just all go away and so forth. Strength wise, you're building muscle because mass moves mass. There's no way to get around that. It's physics. And so when it feels good to move that heavy weight, you're going to be heavier. So when I get hungry, no, I did not always eat according to an athlete. Not at all.
I would qualify that with the statement of like, a lot of powerlifters are not so focused on nutrition, at least from like a quality standpoint. They're more like about just getting it in. I don't think you were on the extreme end of that spectrum, but I also think you were a lot more relaxed about nutrition than a lot of people can be. Like, I thought you had a very good balance. Like, you were not trying to like just drive a bunch of food into you no matter what, and you weren't trying to like not gain any fat when you were like trying to achieve a strength goal. So I thought you were pretty, at least from my point of view, like pretty even-handed with like, okay, I'm not going to be a total like extremist on either end. You were just like, okay, it looks like I need to go down a little bit. And we were kind of having conversations periodically, and she was like, yeah, I went a little crazy with the nut butters this week or whatever. And I was like, that's cool, that's fine. Like, we just need to make sure we monitor her weight to stay in her weight class. And then once the competitions were done, she was more like, oh, now I want to kind of lean out a little bit. And like, it was not like an extreme anything, which I thought was really cool, that you got that like ability to kind of just be normal about food and not be like, oh, I'm so locked in, or, oh, I want to stay aesthetic no matter what. Like, I felt like you had a very good, like, balanced way of looking at it.
There's, again, over those 2 years, there's just such a dramatic change in my situation in general, from being at, one house with teenagers and kids and a family that I had to cook for and so forth, to now being on my own. Still have a teenager come in occasionally and so forth, but there's a bit more of my own self-reliance there. I can plan things for myself specifically and not have to feel like I'm providing a sit-down dinner with the family all the time. But then that also brought in, you start dating again, and food becomes different still because you're going out and that. So discipline means like not having a cheat meal, but it's like, no, this is just part of the plan. This is how I'm choosing to do my life and my nutrition at this point. And making the choices that you are just conscious about.
I think that was a great segue to kind of what I was gonna say, and I forgot that point, which was that I feel like after the divorce, and obviously there were a couple of weeks there, a couple of months even, where, no, I think it was just a couple of weeks, honestly, you were pretty much, you transitioned very quickly. But once you were like out of that house and like onto your own adventure, I felt like that's when you really hit your stride. Like, that's at least from my perception, was like, you were like, okay, no, now I can really lock in. Like, I remember you were out of that house and you were telling me about that experience, and I was like, whoa, that's intense. But then shortly after that, you were just like kind of feeling it. Like, you were just like looking around, like, I can just kind of run now. Like, I don't have anything kind of holding me back. And it was really cool to witness from my point of view, because I was able to see you really come into your own and like do what you wanted to do more of the time. And that was still like very athletically focused. You liked training. You really liked being on this journey. And it was really cool to see you being able to do that. But also, like you were saying, dating again, having new life experiences and feeling like, whoa, like tickled by that too. You like came more alive, which was really cool to witness. So I just think that was such a cool thing to be able to see from a coach's perspective, is like the different life situations and how that translates to people having a season of like extreme growth or like kind of a little bit of stagnation before that. Like I think usually things happen kind of cyclically, right? Like summer, fall, summer, fall, winter, spring. There's kind of a lot of seasons in life where things can kind of feel stagnant, and no matter how badly you want something to change, it won't until that kind of that camel or the straw breaks the camel's back kind of thing. Not a very vegan phrase, I know, but but you kind of had that thing happen, that life event happen, and then all of a sudden it was like spring. You know what I mean? And you just like grew in like a short amount of time. And that was really fun to be on that ride with you. So we were just like excited, like, planning going back and forth and stuff. So I just wanted to say that was really cool to witness from my perspective. And I think it's really cool that you were able to just like take a situation and be like, okay, I'm going to relearn how to do certain things, but that's actually kind of exciting because I felt stuck for a while. And I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I was just really excited about that point.
That was that was that whole transition over moving into a brand new place, it really scary, really tiring. But at the same time, I'm going through this, doing a move, and one of the things I was thinking of, how grateful am I that I am this strong and can do this, and I'm not trying to move all of my things. Now, granted, I had movers and stuff like that, but packing and putting everything together and stuff, it's physically stressful. I thought, I'm in really good shape, and just how grateful am I for that? Because it would be even more tiring if I weren't in great shape. And the chance to stock your cupboards and your refrigerator brand new.
That and having your own career path, and you had your own career path, and you had your training. You had so much going for you already. And I think that's something people always need to think about, is like, it's great to trust and be connected to somebody and have that kind of partnership. But if that ever doesn't work, like, you have to have your own stuff too. So I think it's really cool that you're kind of just like, you were still living your life. It was just kind of not working in one aspect. And then once that kind of broke away, you were still able to rely on all that other stuff to like, turn into, you could even invest more into it after a while, which was cool. Yeah. 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, carry us forward. We need more questions to discuss.
I am taking this all in. Let's lighten up the conversation a little bit. What is your favorite meal when you go out to eat on a date, or in general? Maybe with your son, maybe on a date, maybe take yourself out to go somewhere. What do you enjoy?
So lately it's the Mediterranean. So the Mediterranean bowls tend to really, that's the most filling for me, the most homey kind of, and the fellow I'm seeing likes it too. And he's not vegan, but there's enough there for him to be able to eat as well. So that's good. Cool. I love a good falafel.
Yeah, and you're in Texas too, so it's probably not. So you got to think about like, what are the places that just have them by default most of the time, right? But that's cool.
Okay, here's another interesting. You mentioned Texas. Sorry. So do you get any sort of judgment or questions, curiosity, hopefully positive curiosity, but maybe not, when it comes to you're on a plant-based diet and you're in the barbecue capital of the United States? What is that like?
Well, I'm in Houston, just south of Houston, actually. So Houston, I think it's one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the country, and it's so diverse in all respects that no one really cares.
Just for that.
Because anybody could not be eating something, or eating something for any one of a number of reasons, and maybe it's also just Texas. I'm not natively from Texas. I've been here about 8 years now, I think, something like that, from Wisconsin and Iowa, and here it's just not. They're just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I would imagine it would not be the same case in the Midwest if that were the situation.
It's a lot harder in the Midwest because there aren't quite as many alternatives. But here, like I was saying, there's Mediterranean and there's 16 different versions of Asian things and such here, and
Mhm.
as well as the
That's not
vegan
really
and that.
good.
You're just going to find everything here, and so it's not as difficult.
Cool.
Okay,
I
here's
think
another question. So, like,
oh,
what would you say to someone who is feeling fear or stressed out about their eating habits when they're trying to either obtain a certain look, or they're trying to make a weight class, or they're trying to be routine and regimented about being nutritious and healthy and eating well and eating to be fitter and all that, and they're having a hard time just not letting loose, making it so that going out to eat and having something that isn't pre-planned or pre-programmed or even tracked, just a part of what they do. It might not be, obviously it's not what you're going to do every day because you have goals and you need to be on track for your goals. However, what do you say to someone who has a hard time embracing eating in a way where you also enjoy eating and being a little not 100% regimented and routine? What would you say to a person like that? Because you mentioned, a little nut butter here, a little Mediterranean there, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like there's been a shift for you this past year with not stressing about that stuff as much.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think when I decided to stop beating myself up over choices that, would they be 100% within plan? No. Are they 80% within plan? Sure. Okay. Well, great. If you think of you taking a test and your child comes home with an 80% or a B or something like that, do you scold them for that score? No, of course you wouldn't,
Mhm.
because that's not going to be encouraging. Why would you give the 80% that is good?
Especially if they were trying, right? If they're doing their best and then you scold them, it's like it's a disincentive for them to try again. You know what I mean? Because they're like, well, I can't impress this person. I can't make them happy. So why would I try? You know what I mean? So I like that analogy. Yeah.
Your own brain works the same way. If you're constantly telling yourself, you did that bad, you made that mistake, you did this, without seeing the things that you did do well, you're going to lose internal motivation.
Hmm.
I love to cook. I don't like to cook all the time, but I do love to cook.
Yeah.
And if I'm cooking for someone, that's really important to me. Having a meal with someone, yes, that's really important to me. Um, so those things mean a lot within life too. I know I can do what I need to do to make a weight class if need be, and kind of prove that just within the very first meet that I did. Did I like it? No, absolutely not. Do I want to, so I also learned then, okay, look, that's a bad choice. Let's make it make it so that we don't have to do that again. But it's for the stage that I'm stage of life and everything now, going out to eat with somebody is something I want to enjoy, and that's just as important as what the scale says the next day.
I think, like I said, I think you have a very healthy, balanced mindset about this. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the kind of lead up to the meet, because I feel like that was a very significant point in your journey too. Of like, I mean, it really started when you realized you were within spitting distance of a record, that you were like, snap, like this just got real. And I remember that moment and I was like, okay, she's getting stressed out. We need to like, and I remember just telling you, like, you need to call upon your team. Like you need to, everybody that's your ally in this, you need to be talking to consistently, because if you bottle it up, it could destroy you. You know what I mean? And I hope that was good advice. But what was your perception from that moment? And then going forward, like, how did you deal with the pressure that you started to feel going into that meet where you knew you could set state, regional records that you ended up doing, you know?
That was interesting. You say, leading up in a couple of months leading up to that, maybe 2 or 3 months leading up to that, my numbers were just on fire. They were just going up, up, up. I was making
Yeah.
PRs like every week, and it was crazy. And I thought, okay, all right, what's going on? Cool. But wow. And my goal for the meet were specific numbers, and then I surpassed them in training. I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to adjust those now. Okay, cool. Didn't think much of it. My goal was to be able to qualify for USA Powerlifting Nationals. That'll be in June, and they released some totals to come out, and Like they were about right where I was at the at say January or so, a little uh, maybe a bit later. But like okay, if I execute according to plan, I should qualify for nationals, and that's kind of all I was thinking about. I was looking around their rankings database one day, and I saw the records for Texas and for regional, then for my age group and weight class. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm there already. I'm there or above there already.
You're like, oh my God. It was obviously it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be that strong, but it's also like that's a huge realization that you feel all this pressure all of a sudden. I remember when that happened, I was very like, okay, we need to talk. Like we need to block out all the noise and just talk about this.
Yeah, because what went through my head was, how am I going to screw this up now? Am I going to blow? And this is going to, how am I going to, no, you can't possibly be that. It all came out. That is for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing we did do was we focused on the fact that you had the training really, like we had made some good training changes, right? We put in some accessories that made sense. We had to work on squat depth. We had to work on some other things, but you were very open to that and did it, and it seemed to work, which was great. Again, we were being adaptable with that. But then from that point, like that couple of months out, we really started to lock in on mindset. And I think that's what the majority of the time leading up to the competition was what we talked about, was like the mindset. What do you think were like the most helpful tips? Because I don't want to go over everything we talked about, but like, what do you think were the most helpful things, or not even tips that I gave, but things that you discovered and like things that you would tell somebody going into like a high pressure situation like that? I would love to hear what like worked for you.
Having, when you said to rally everybody around you in terms of getting their support, that definitely helped, because I probably wouldn't have said anything to a lot of people if you hadn't said, this will help. Do that. Rally these folks. So I would have been more inclined to, no, I'll just keep it to myself. That way, if it doesn't happen, then I'm not embarrassed or anything, so on and so forth like that.
Yeah. It almost feels like making a big deal out of like your birthday party or something, right? Like you're like,
right. Yeah.
Everybody look at me. I'm so great. And it's not what's happening at all. You're saying, hey, I really need your support right now. Like I'm scared out of my mind. Like, and you need to remember that you're not trying to glorify yourself. And if people think that's what you're doing, then they don't really get you anyway. So like, see ya, So I really like that you took that advice, because I think that when we feel like we're in our weakest moments, or like we're scared, or like you said, you thought you're going to mess it up, you really need people around like all the time reminding you how impressive you are, how much you've worked for this, how they love you, even if things don't go according to plan. There's so many things people can remind you of along that way. And I knew that it was going to be a tall task for just me, because it's so much pressure at that point, that I wanted more than just me rallying around you, and I'm
Sawyer. No, go get the support from somewhere else. I'm dead. This is way too much pressure for me. He's out there killing it. Okay, all right. Sorry, I had to chime in.
Allow me to explain myself to my boss right now before I lose my job.
Stop.
I'm just kidding. I just think that it's so hard. It's just like how you can't get all your fulfillment in life from your romantic partner. It's the same kind of thing. Like you cannot just rely on one person, especially with our limited interactions. We're only checking in once a week.
Yeah.
Like how many thoughts happen in between that once a week? So I knew that kind of thing looming on the horizon, and the closer it got, the more your brain was going to be like wigging out and being like, you can't do this, it's too scary for this reason or that reason or whatever. So having people who kind of knew what you were doing and what you were in for and how important it was to you at the outset, I was like, she's going to have more than just one voice reassuring. And I felt like that was really, I'm really glad you took it.
And they do, and then you'd be surprised who around you wants to give you that support. My kids are great, of course. My son's a Division II lacrosse player, and so he's no stranger to the weight room, and he was a good one for support like that. But at work, so I still work remotely for a children's hospital. I'm in IT, and so I let my teams know, and they were like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And so I was, and a couple of the other folks in like the leadership and so forth where I'm working, and let them know what's going on. Headed to the meet. It was up in Dallas, so it's a good 5 hours from where I live. And it was nice to get their little messages of encouragement, knowing that it's there's it's still me doing it, but here's some really positive voices, and this is going to be something good. Funny story. So when the meet was going on, it was on a Friday. The women all lifted on Friday. They have a chip at work at that time. I had given them the streaming links for the lift, and one of the guys was watching on there, and he said, "Wait, you're not going to believe this. Mel's on now." And so during the leadership meeting for this children's hospital, they've got a petition. Get that squat.
That's so cool. Dude, Mel, I was in Costa Rica and watching on my laptop with like I think I sent you a picture. It was like my laptop and then the like Costa Rican rainforest in the background. And I remember feeling I was very nervous for you actually. I wasn't going to tell you that, but I was feeling like you were going up and I was like, "Oh, why am I so nervous?" I was really in it. So but it was so cool to see you just like hit those numbers, and like I was just like freaking out. And I was in the gym shortly after that when you were doing, I think, the bench portion. And I was like checking every 2 seconds to see if you were coming on because it was like a bunch of people going through. And it was just such a cool experience to be rooting for somebody like that. So I love that you let more people have that experience of like cheering for you and like being excited for you, because it's like we all need that kind of, not only do we need to receive that sometimes when it's our moment to shine and like something we work towards, but like it's fun to give that too, you know what I mean, to watch it's like, you know how some crazy sports fans must feel when they have like a personal connection to a sports team. I guess I've never really understood that, but I definitely understood like wanting to see you win because I knew you so well and like what this meant to you. And it was so cool to be in that moment and like really give a shit about something and like get to see you win. So it was like, so thank you. I don't even think I thanked you for that experience of like, thanks for getting me into powerlifting so much, because I've never watched a meet with such like thrill as I did that day, you know? So thank you for that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that was awesome. We were texting and or emailing during the meet, and I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't have a team there really or anything. I had my significant other was acting as my handler, and it's kind of a new relationship, but how about stressful situation? Here, can you come be my handler?
I like
I
that.
might achieve a record. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like it.
He came through with flying colors though. He did great. And
That's excellent. That's
but
excellent. Yeah. So I mean, wow, we've been talking for almost an hour now. It feels like it's been 5 minutes, but 𝐶𝐭, how do you want to wrap this up? What do you think we should finish on the note of?
The floor should be all Mel's. What are your parting thoughts here? What would you like to share with our audience when it comes to facing adversity and still finding a way to not only meet your needs, but also find a way to rise, overcome, and become the new best version of yourself? Because to me, you're living a whole new life right now, and you're on a new high, accomplishing something that you could have only dreamed of only a few years ago, despite all of the challenges that have come your way. What would you say to somebody else who's facing a similar circumstance?
there's a few things that really come to mind. Is that trust is key. Trust in yourself. Trust in other people's recommendations when you know they're genuine. When they know they have your best interests in heart. These things are all possible. May not materialize in the way that you put it in your head, essentially. Might be better. Some things might not work as well, but it's all still good in the end. Some things that I went through were not, definitely not ideal, and I've had to adapt a bunch. That's what we do. That's just always what we do. If we're not adapting, there isn't much alternative, really. So trust what you're trust yourself when you put together options in order to adapt. Don't be afraid to adapt again. It's okay to put something down and pick up a different thing if that other thing wasn't working. That's just kind of key. And I think sometimes changing your approach, specifically like with athletics and that too, and weightlifting, it can be a very violent and aggressive type of like when you start looking through all of the video shorts and the footage and that, it's really very tough. And I changed my mindset specifically when I got to those last couple of weeks before the meet, where it was like, jumping up and down and yelling and screaming and I got this. That's not what I'm feeling right now. That's not bringing me the energy, the
right
feel
kind of
that
energy.
I want.
Yeah.
So like squats were kind of my nemesis. Like Sawyer mentioned, I'm having trouble with depths and that. And so I was having this attitude of I have to beat the squat, and I finally flipped it and I'm like, no, I don't have to beat the squat. I have to work with the squat. I have to be with this bar. This bar is my teammate. This is how this is, I'm going to approach this with joy because I want to do this. It's fun for me. So instead of being aggressive with it, I took a different joyful, I guess, kind of approach to it. And then the squat started to click a little bit more. I just found what worked for me. And that,
Yeah.
it's different for everybody.
Yeah. I love how you said that in the last couple of weeks. That was totally your idea, as far as I'm aware, because I didn't say anything like that. I just remember you bringing that up in one of our calls where you were saying like, I got tired of treating it like an adversary, and I wanted to just be more peaceful about it and more grateful for it. And like, what it symbolized to you, what the barbell and what the squat symbolized to you became different. And I think that shift, that ability to do your own thing, even when the very vast majority of powerlifters are seeing it as like a beast mode kind of activity, and then like an adversarial thing, you were like, well, that didn't feel like me. And I think there are a lot of athletes where that's the case, where they don't survive or use their aggression to be better. They are very composed and very grateful to be there. I think there's a lot to that. So I think it's really cool that you had that kind of serenity, even with all that chaos going around you, and you were able to tap into it. I'm sure the nerves were going. I'm sure it was tempting to just like overdose on caffeine and just like try to go crazy through it. But the fact that you kind of turned inward and did more like a meditative kind of approach, I think really worked out in your favor. And so, for anybody who is afraid to start their athletic journey because they're just not an aggressive person or they don't want to become that kind of a person, I think it's a really great example to show people that that's not the only route to becoming very athletically excellent, is still be yourself and still approach things in a different way than the majority of people do, and be successful, or even just successful on your own thing. I think one thing I want to bring up before we go is just that a lot of the conversations we talked about at the last few weeks or like months was that, you've already won basically. And I hope that helped you like calm too, because it was like we had these conversations where I got myself emotional. I remember talking about why you had already won, because in the people's eyes who matter most to you, you're already a badass. You're already a winner. You already show up for people in the ways that you need to, like your sons and things like that. Like they already think you're incredible. And so for you to have the accolade and to impress strangers is cool and all that, and probably good for business and whatever else, but you're not even in the fitness business, so it doesn't matter. But so like the idea though is like anybody who really matters in your life and who's along for the ride for the long haul already thinks the world of you. So getting this accolade is cool and it's validating, but it's fleeting too. Like when you stop winning, those people will stop following. Right. And regardless of if you're winning or losing, you're going to have those people in your corner thinking you're amazing. Those are the people that matter more, in my opinion. And I think that having those reminders, I hope, helped you just kind of tap into like, this is for me. And I'm just kind of doing this because I want to prove to myself that I've come a long way. And you already have proven that time and time again. You prove that every time you train and you beat, PR and everything. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I just thought that was really cool that you were able to like tap into that and like focus on what really mattered. And I think that's one of the most amazing parts about competing in general, is just like all the other noise in life kind of drowns out and you focus on what's the most important thing when you're feeling that kind of pressure. Right. It's almost like putting yourself in a survival situation, or at least that's what it feels like. I think at least it did for me. Like competing growing up or being on stage or anything like that. I don't really typically like that kind of pressure, but I definitely felt like it kind of removes all the background noise and you kind of focus on what really matters in life. I'm really glad that you had that experience, and I'm really glad you came out on top. I mean, that's just such a cool thing to be able to say is you're a record holder, you know?
Yeah,
Amazing.
until someone else comes around and they so the one I beat was from 2015, so we'll see. We'll see who else
I
shows
mean,
up.
that's good. You could have a 10-year reign, my friend. That would be cool.
Who knows? Yeah, never can tell, that's for sure. But yeah, we'll see. Nationals coming up,
Mhm,
and taking some time to enjoy life for a little bit here, and then
mhm.
probably get back under the heavyweight again.
We'll ramp it up. We'll ramp it up soon. But I'm glad you're just living it up right now because you deserve to after a period of time like that.
Why don't you take us home, Sawyer?
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys, for this tapping into this kind of conversation. We're glad you guys were along for the ride. Hopefully, you're inspired as we are by Mel's journey and everything she's overcome. And thanks so much, Mel, for being here and sharing your wisdom with all of us. It's really cool to be a part of that too. So I just want to thank you on a personal note, like for letting me be along for the ride. Anyway, follow us on YouTube, on social media. Please like us, give us a rating if you can. 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐞𝐭, anything else you want to say? Sign us off.
That's it. Just find us at Muscles by Brussels and at Vegan Proteins. And thanks so much for tuning into another episode. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, guys.